Hello, everyone, and welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. I always like starting with a couple Bible verses. Excuse me, everyone. Make sure there's going to be trigger warnings. In Matthew 18, verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. We need to learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Are you are you in here yet, Charles? Hello there, everybody. Good to see you. Hello, Eric. I'm sorry, I'm having to keep clearing my throat. Maybe Bill can't come in. We miss you, Chris, so I'm glad you're here. I told Charles, come on in here, gave him the link. Rainy and windy in England. Sorry. Please forgive me. So, Charles, please say hello and just write down and if you're in there. Let me present the invite, but I don't even think he's in here right now. Let me call him right quick. Hey, I sent you the link to go ahead and go to YouTube, click on there, and then when you come in there in the comment section, I'll send you the invite link to StreamYard, and you click on that and come in, all right? Okay, right. And yeah, okay, that's okay. All right. So we got a good story today. Charles Rogers discusses the Predator ice cream man. There's the link for you, Charles, to hit. So how's everyone doing today while we're waiting on Charles to come? Let's be supportive. To no matter what, if anybody's got any disagreements with anybody or any beef with anybody here, we are here to support. Sorry, this is taking a little bit. Let me play a little bit of background music so y'all don't have to hear my voice. While we're waiting on Charles. Okay. How is everyone's day going so far? Yeah, my shoulder's doing somewhat better. Hey there we go. And hey Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing fair to middling, as we say in the South.
Yeah, hanging in there like a loose tooth. Other words.
Well, there ain't no loose teeth around here.
Yes,
Thank God.
ma'am.
Okay, I'll let you introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, I was in your other episodes listed as Blackstone lawyer.
That was at
That,
this.
uh,
This was at. Let me tell people this is at Blog Talk Radio where he's talking about. He was on some of my episodes there.
mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Actually, you can also look me up on Signal Hire, that Polish company.
And we got William Pennington here. Who wants to go ahead and lead us in prayer if that's okay, right quick?
Yeah, is my mic on?
Yes. Could you
Okay.
lead us in a word of prayer, right quick?
Yeah. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for all the protections and blessings that you provide for us and others. And help us with all the other things that we need help in our investigations and other things that are ongoing and many of the other things to protect people and do the best to help provide help to others. And it's in Christ's name that we give you thanks, glory, and praise. Amen.
Thank you so much. Well, you can say hello to your friend Charles.
Hey, Charles. I know he's there.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute your mic, William, okay?
Okay, good idea.
Okay, y'all, this is William. He came in to do a prayer so that we could start it off on a good note. Amen. And William is in a nursing home, so continue to pray for him. Okay, Charles, are you there? I mute Mike. Charles, I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Just barely.
Just barely.
Can y'all hear him okay? William, give the thumbs up if you can. And on the screen, you can see where people's got comments, so y'all can hit the screen with comments, and then y'all can comment on there to the people as well.
Okay. Well, my mic's on. Can you hear me now?
Can y'all hear him okay? Please put a one there if y'all can hear him well. Sound is good, Jackie said, and Chris Miller says yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess what we're starting off is a story about that Slicky Boy ice cream truck driver down there in Naples, Florida, back in '69, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I guess best way to start off. Some people say, I guess, odd. I have a lot of. I say a lot of memories. I have some memories that go back into my early childhood. Um, as far as back as 2 years of age, and I remember there in Marietta after my dad developed um, Frederick Drive, Walker Drive, and Patton Drive there on Sandy Plains Road. That he and his brother Merle um, wound up with this contract or stucco contract for this building, high rise down in Naples, Florida, because my uncle he had did the stucco work on I think it was Peachtree Center back in the '60s. So they both had were brought up in the stucco um, industry through my dad's maternal uncle Pete Davis, and so they had worked in Delaware, Florida, and I think that's pretty much where they did it at, as well as Delaware stucco work. But mostly before he had his accident um, and hurt his back. Um,
Didn't hear you anymore after you said hurt his back. You cut out, Charles. You still can't hear you. I'm sorry.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, all right. For some reason, my phone wants to lock up, and when it locks up, it does that. So when I open it back up, I get it back on. Um,
Yeah, you
but
got to
anyway,
change
yes,
the timer, the setting on that.
hmm he had to have two discs removed from his back and two fused together down there at the VA hospital in Miami. So he was laid up in bed, my guess, for about a year before he could actually really get up and get around. And he decided to come back up to Marietta and start developing again. But
That was
he
in
had moved
Marietta,
us.
Georgia, right?
Yes, ma'am. But after he had moved us from these apartments into the house where we lived when he had his back surgery before he had his accident, we our air conditioner in the house didn't work. So due to the noise and the television of my mom watching her soaps and my brothers and sisters wanting to do their things, a lot of time I would just step outside and just walk over next door.
I guess your phone went to that setting again there, Charles. You uh, died out again.
Yeah, I don't know why it's wanting to. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I don't know why it wants to do that. And I
You'll
was
have to
just
change your settings on it to where it don't fall asleep. It must be on a timer setting, that if you're not staying on it on a screen or something, it's probably changes out.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now. Feel like a
Okay. Well,
Verizon commercial
I
there.
can't go to settings and do it without you um, not being able to hear me. I guess I'll try it this way. Um,
Right.
um, but it's not
You said
no, it's not giving me that option. But I'll just leave it here right like this. Maybe it won't shut off on me again. But
maybe not.
but yeah, what I was saying was the air conditioning didn't work in the house. So a lot of times I would go next door, just for peace and quietness and cool off. And I would stand under the neighbor's carport, uh, for a little while, not real long, but enough to get out of the hot house, cool off, and just look around and check things out there around where we lived. And I remember the ice cream guy coming by without his music playing and bell ringing, and he pulled up there to the end of the driveway, and he could have been no more than a 19-year-old kid with, sandy blonde hair, blue eyed, kind of skinny. Um,
Yeah, that's in Naples, Florida, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So
That-
he offers me to come out to his van to get some free ice cream, and I had always been taught not to accept, money, candy, and ice cream from strangers.
Right.
So I refused to go out and get the ice cream. So he sat there and kept insisting me come out and get some free ice cream, that every child in the neighborhood got their chance at free ice cream. And he might would even let me ride with him in his van, and I still refused to go out and accept his free ice cream. So he kept getting persistent, and the more he got persistent, the more I
It's got
got
a little,
persistent.
it's got a little static to your voice a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
It's got a little bit of static. Can y'all hear him okay? Try it again, Charles.
Okay. Uh,
It's got a little bit of staticky, a little um, bubbly sound or something. But try it again. Don't seem like something wants you to get this out, but I think it's important for you to get this out. Can't hear you, Charles. I think he's trying to fix the problem. You got a question there? Or you been a one? Charles, are you with us? I still see your name here, but we just can't hear you at all. I know Charles had refused the ice cream, and then I think it was next day or a couple of days later when the guy came back and you lined up in the line. He lined up in the line to get the free ice cream, and that guy said, "Well, I offered you the free ice cream the other day, and you would not take it," and told him to get out of the line. Are you there, Charles? I guess I will continue on with saying what part I know of your story, if that's okay. Well, And there was a girl that uh, he had been given rides to, the ice cream man had, and was telling him that he could trust the ice cream man, but still, Charles chose not to do that. Well, the little girl ended up missing one day, the one that was taking rides from the ice cream man. Hello, Charles. So the other parents got Charles to talk to the other kids on the importance of not taking free things from people and not going for rides with people like that. Charles, are you there? You might have to reboot and come right back. My mother came to the door when he wouldn't leave me alone, so your mother intervened and threatened to call the police. Okay. Hi, Elaine. Good to see you. Charles is writing in the comments right there. You might not, so I'm going to read out loud his what he's saying. He's over here at YouTube. Good to see you, Elaine. I'm glad I can see that the Facebook comment. I didn't think I'd be able to. And what happened next, Charles? Would you like me to call you by the phone and maybe they could hear you with a phone call? Let me try that, see if that will work.
Hello.
Hello. Can y'all give a one if y'all can hear Charles? Try to talk now, okay, Charles? We'll see if they can hear you.
Okay.
Please give a one if y'all can hear him. Talk right now, okay, Charles? I'm waiting on them to give me a one. Thank you.
So he drove off. So I think it was like the next day or two, all the children in the neighborhood all went down to this particular street corner to get ice cream. And he had two lines, took the children to get the ones that got the free ice cream didn't get free ice cream again. And the ones who hadn't received free ice cream formed another line. So of course the siblings and I, we hadn't received any ice cream being new to the neighborhood. And so when it come up to be my turn to get, or my siblings and my turn, and he goes, "Little boy, you don't get free ice cream. You were offered your free ice cream the other day, so you have to get in line and pay for yours." And my mom was like, "Do what?" So was a lot of the other mothers that were standing there. They were like, "What?" My mom she told my siblings to get out of the line. She would take us to the store and buy her ice cream that she didn't want any of his ice cream then. And some of the other mothers told their children, they even told their children to get out of the lines that they would go and buy them ice cream too. So it upset a lot of mothers.
May I ask how old you were at this time?
I was like 3.
3. Wow.
Yes, ma'am. So anyway, my mom never would buy any ice cream from him. So one day, the little girl, she lived a couple of houses down across the street from. She was like 5 years old, and one day he comes through without his music playing. She comes down and he gives her some free ice cream, and he takes off, and she hollered at me and told me that I had nothing to worry about. He gave her free ice cream all the time, and had let her ride in his van before, and you get to eat all the free ice cream when you ride in his van. And so I got, listening to her, I still kind of wondered. I'm, still 3 years old, so I kind of wondered if it would be okay, to accept ice cream from this guy. Well, one day, the police come out, and they're at the house where she lives, and everybody's, asking questions, some of the neighbors and some of the police and plainclothes detectives came out, and they didn't know where the girl was. She had disappeared, and parents didn't know where she was. So being a little nosy little 3-year-old, I come walking down, approached one of the officers when he came out of the driveway of the neighbors across the street, and asked him what was going on. And he said that the little girl had gone missing, and the parents didn't know where she was.
Oh man.
And asked me if I knew anything, and so that's when I tried to explain to her about the ice cream man, which of course I kind of sounded like a little Dutchman, and he couldn't understand. So my mom had to come out and kind of help him understand what I was saying. And that's when she filled him in about this ice cream guy. So they put out an APB on him, and they wound up actually locating them, if I remember correctly, at his home.
Oh man.
They wasn't out in his van joyriding around or eating ice cream. So they wind up rescuing her. He winds up going to jail. The people in the neighborhood, they're like, well, there's this 3-year-old little boy that, helped the police, rescue this girl, which was me. So I had to go out and start telling other children why I wouldn't accept the ice cream from him, and not to accept, ice cream money and candies from strangers. And so that was my first speech I got to give to little children about accepting ice cream, candy, money from strangers.
So I can imagine he was essaying her, right? Sexually assaulting her.
I assume so. I'm really unclear because there was a reporter from the newspaper that came out and did a story on it, but they didn't want to identify my name. I think it was like 3-year-old boy helped police rescue, 5-year-old girl or something like that. If they wanted to check around with some of the newspapers in that area to see if I could, find a newspaper article on it.
Maybe some of y'all that's listening might be able to look it up too. That was Naples, Florida, around what year?
1969, I believe it was. It was before my dad had his accident and had to have his back surgery. He was at work, so it was before he was laid up in bed, and like I said, for well over a year. So the reason why I figured that would be important to bring up is to where people could understand how I was able to maneuver my way around over there on Bentley Farm without anything bad happening to me, and why I was very, very leery my second trip over there about engaging in any inappropriate conduct
Was
with
that
Jim.
with Jim Stubbs, right?
Yes, ma'am. With Jim Stubbs' 5-year-old daughter in 1972.
So is Jim Stubbs in any way related to the Bentleys, or?
Well, that is Ed Bentley Jr.'s brother-in-law. This is Bentley Farms in Marietta. Somewhat common knowledge in Marietta, city of Marietta, about that farm because of the amount of barns that has burned repeatedly, and some that have, eventually been burned down.
And you can tell them about how Stubbs basically groomed you as a 5-year-old or so, 6-year-old.
I was 6 in 1972, and it was after my bout of double pneumonia. I guess my second bout of pneumonia. I had pneumonia when I was 2, and this was like my second bout. And instead of putting me in the hospital, I was put in Bodie Medical Clinic in Woodstock, Georgia. Which was like a little miniature hospital. He even had a ICU unit. It was built in a circle with a nursing station in the center to where they could monitor the patients. It was a nice little setup. It wasn't your average clinic. You got the same care, if not better care there in that clinic than you would in a regular hospital, and at a fraction of the price. So, and of course, Dr. Bodie was my doctor on up until I was in my 20s when he passed away. He was always my primary physician. So, what had happened, my dad, he had completed some developments over off of Kehealy Road, North Landing subdivision on Trippin Road. And he was waiting for his permits to start the development of Frankie Lane and Pine Shadow subdivision on Holly Springs Road. He had developed the second phase of Mountain View subdivision and had moved us in the house on what became the corner of Frankie Lane. Well, his regular heavy equipment operator didn't have any work for him, but he went ahead and paid him like $200 a week to hold him out until he could get a contract, plus helped him with groceries.
Right.
Well, he went and took on a contract with this other builder there in Marietta, like a 3-month, what was supposed to be like a 3-month contract, and it turned up into being like a 6 or 7-month contract. So, which really ticked my dad off because he had to go out and find another heavy equipment operator. Well, of course, back in the day, we had Dunaway Drugs there on the Marietta Square, and a lot of the builders and would meet over there for breakfast in the mornings. They all would show up like 5:30 and 6 o'clock and go in there and eat breakfast and hang out and talk with each other. And he asked around there about any heavy equipment operators. Of course, nobody knew of any. And he would go to the Dunkin' Donuts where Ed Bentley Sr. would show up sometimes to have donuts and coffee. And one morning he was in there. He asked some of the other developers if they knew of anybody that here's heavy equipment operator. Well, of course, Ed Bentley Sr. was like, well, I got my son-in-law. He's applied to become a Cobb County police officer, but his application has been approved. He's just waiting for his space in the academy to start his training. Well, my dad, he was really reluctant of having any type of dealings with Ed Bentley Sr. He just really was not a fan of Ed Bentley. I think that reason was, one, Ed Bentley was his competitor. And two, I think it's actually the story about, he told me about the, dad who was, raping his own daughter.
Oh,
He had attempted to kill one time because he dated this girl and found out that her own dad or adopted dad had been, raping her.
how old were you when you found that out?
I think he told me about that, like, he didn't put it in that way. He just said he did bad things with his daughter. And he would, when you're that young, they don't go into details.
Right.
But that's what, when you get older, you put 2 and 2 together, you come up with 4, of course.
Right.
So I'm assuming it was Terry that he was talking about, that, there's a reason why he was real reluctant to even consider a member of the Bentley family. But his permits had been approved. He couldn't be out running heavy equipment by himself every day. He needed a heavy equipment operator. So, of course, I go in a Bodie Medical Clinic with my first bout with double pneumonia, 72, I said second. But after we got back to Marietta, it was the first time I wound up with double pneumonia again. So, he came up and relieved my mom one day, gave her a break for half the morning, where she could go and take care of some things. And he sat with me, and he sat there, and you know how dads are. They'll ask their children their opinion just to see what they'll say and not really base their decision on it.
Right.
And but he said he couldn't find a heavy equipment operator except for this one who was son-in-law of this one guy he really didn't think a whole lot about.
Yes. So that's the Jim Stubbs and the Ed Bentley Sr. then, right?
ma'am.
So that was Jim Stubbs and Ed Bentley Sr., right?
Yes, ma'am. So, um, right when they thought I was about to die, I had a miraculous recovery. And my dad had came in and sat with me, I think, like half a day again with my mom because they wasn't certain I was going to make it or not. So when I came to, we talked, and he said he had found him a heavy equipment operator. And so this is actually the first time I met God, and because I did come back miraculously.
Amen.
So my mom brought me home. I was in first grade at Mountain View Elementary School, and so I didn't go to school that day, and the doctors wanted me to stay at home a few days just to, to see how I would do at home during the change of season before I went back to school. So the following morning, I woke up to the sound of heavy equipment outside my bedroom window, and they were breaking the ground on Frankie Lane. So I got up and went in, had my breakfast, and went outside and got to sit there and watch the heavy equipment operator he had just hired start cutting in the pad where they could pull in and park the vehicles without having to pull in our driveway. So I even got to ride on the front end loader when he pushed down the old tree of the old house. I think I had to get off there one time when he had to do the house, was allowed to, jump back on the loader and ride with him again. But, he was real friendly. And I immediately started grooming me. Telling me he was going to become a police officer, and he had children my age, a daughter my age, that maybe I could come, eventually come over and stay the night and play with his children. He had a son like a year and a half older than me, and another son like almost 4 years older than me, which made it the same age as my sister. And they would probably be my new friends. His little daughter would be my little girlfriend. So I could have me a little girlfriend and two more friends of her brothers, and so on and so forth. So, that all sounds good whenever you're 6 years old. But when God tells you got to meet your first devil, you got to meet your first devil, and that's exactly who he was. So whenever I'd come home from school and he would be doing some grading there, I would go over. My dad would let me crawl up and ride with him on the front end loader. Sometimes I'd come home, they'd be across the road at Pine Shadows, grading over there, cutting the roads on it, and I'd be permitted to go over there and ride over there. But of course, winter came, and whenever winter comes in Georgia, it always slows down because of the bad weather. You get the November rains, and then you get the colder weather in December and January.
Correct.
So, I think it was right around I believe it was around, I don't know, December that actually it was before my birthday that I was allowed to go over and stay the night. Finally, after all these months of grooming me, he even brought his family over to Sandy Plains States one day to have lunch over there with us, so his children could meet my siblings and me and his wife, and they, seemed like normal family. Nothing that really, led my parents being suspicious about anything.
Right.
So it was quite a bit of time involved before we finally convinced my dad parents to let me go over and stay the night with him and his family. And my dad told him, he goes, well, I'll let him go over there and stay the night with your family, but I want him sleeping in a room by himself, not with your sons, and not in the same room with your daughter. And when he takes a bath, he bathes alone. He doesn't bathe with any of your children, your sons, nor your daughter. And of course, he agreed to that. And they, so my parents allowed me to let him come over and let me ride over to his place after he got off work one day. When we got there, you would have to go down Binkley Lake Road and pull down this driveway and behind the old house that still stands there.
So they lived on a Bentley property then back then, right?
Yes, ma'am. And of course, Bentley Farm had quite a few barns. They had this old concrete barn that used to stand there close to that old house.
Yes.
And two concrete horse stables that you could see from the 120 loop that was built in the late 50s. And one section had a rec room with a ping pong table, air hockey table, and a dartboard. And adjacent to it, the other concrete stables was a 4-bedroom quarters for the help. Well, that's where they lived in, was in the living quarters there at the second horse stables from the road, from 20 Loop.
Yeah, I remember one of them being 2-story.
Yeah, that was the concrete barn. And it was built out of concrete and actually had windows in it.
Right.
But you couldn't see what was in the windows. So I got to go over and, play ping pong for the first time in my life. Got to play air hockey for the first time in my life, and tried to throw some darts, and but mostly got to play air hockey. We had to go in.
Charles, my friend Elaine said she lives off of 120 Loop in East Cobb.
Yeah, well, she knows where Bentley Farm is.
Did you know where Bentley Farms is then, Elaine? You go ahead, Charles.
Anyway, we go in and sit down to eat, and we're sitting there, and before we start to eat, I was used to saying a blessing, before we ate. They were all looking at me real funny, what's the matter? I said, well, my family always says a blessing before we eat. So next thing I know, they're having me say the blessing.
Right.
And after I finish saying the blessing, Jim looked at me and he asked me, if I was going to bathe that night with his daughter. And some told me I better say I would.
And you were still 6-year-old at this time, right?
Well, yes, ma'am. When I was in the game room, playing games with the children, his sons were going. They asked me if I was going to bathe with their sister that night, and I said, "Well, I don't think so." And they're like, "Well, you'll want to, because you'll have a lot of fun when you do."
Oh man.
Yeah. So they were grooming me when I was in the game room. The two sons were, and she was too. So when I got in and sat down at the dinner table, he looked over at me and asked me if I would bathe with her. And some told me, tell him I would. And he just kind of smirked at me and he goes, well, Charles, you're a smart kid. It's a good thing you said so, because if you said no, I was going to yank you up and take you outside and beat your head in with a hammer and tell your parents you ran off.
Wow. You would have been murdered.
Yes, ma'am. And
Elaine has wondered.
When you look at, how powerful the Bentleys are there in Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah, Elaine has wondered if it's on Barnes Mill Road. Barnes.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of the name of the road there at Tip Top Poetry. They own property on both sides of the 120 loop. They're at the Whitewater exit, close to the Big Chicken.
Thank you. I'm sorry you endured that. That's horrific.
Yeah.
So what you made it out alive, and what happened in the bathroom? What?
Well, he put me in the tub. I don't want to go into too many details.
Exactly.
But there was touching. Them touching her getting me to touch her, and her wanting to touch me. And I asked her, I said, "Where did you learn this from?" And she goes, "My daddy taught me."
Oh man.
Said,
Oh geez.
"Daddy taught me." Well, him and Ed Bentley Jr. was standing outside the door listening to us. Because I know when I got in the tub with her, Ed Bentley Jr. was standing outside the door with him when I went in there and got in the tub with them. Both of them peeked in. So when I asked her that, it made him mad. He came in there and yanked me out of the tub, told me to dry off. I was been taking a bath with her. He went ahead and put me to bed. And I think the reason why he didn't kill me was after we got through eating and his children went back outside to the game room, he was watching the news. And of course, my dad, he didn't even like to be bothered by anyone when he was watching the news himself. And Jim, he was the same way. He didn't want to talk about anything while the news was on, so I had to wait till intermission. And I asked him, I said, "Mr. Stubbs, I thought we were friends." And he goes, well, yeah, Charles, I guess I could see where you would think that. And I said, well, well, aren't we friends? And he goes, well, I guess I can be your friend. Why you get that? And I was like, well, I'm really troubled about how you asked me if I was going to bathe with your daughter. And after I told you I would, you made that remark that if I had said no, that you would have taken me out here and, beat me in the head with a hammer and killed me if I said no. And I said, you got me scared about if I'm going to be safe staying here tonight. And I said, thinking we were friends, and it was the other way around, I would make certain that you were safe if you came to my home and you stayed the night with me. So if I stay the night with you tonight, will you promise me you'll keep me safe? And he looked at me real funny. He goes, Charles, you talking to me like an adult would talk to another adult. He goes, I'll tell you what, you got my word. You will be safe staying the night here. I will not let nothing happen to you. And so I was fine. I went back out and played with the children, and of course, we played air hockey and stuff like that for about 30, 45 minutes. Then it was time for her and I to come in and take our bath before his son's dead. So it was for her to get me in the tub and teach me some things and set me up to come back over for another day is what it was.
Yes,
So,
no grooming, probably going to get you in child pornography stuff as well.
Yes, ma'am. Because they managed to convince my dad and to let me go back over there one day again. And I was over there again. And I always wondered, I went over there the first time. He had allowed me to play in his little, I think it was a 1969 Ford Fairmont police car he had bought from the department.
Right.
He had come over in it one day when he was supposedly to be in training at the academy and wasn't working for him and dad. They come pulling up in the yard one day, and that patrol car still had the little single blue light on the roof, and it didn't have a radio. It didn't have the separator or cage, they call it. Didn't have that in it, but it still had the decals and the blue light. So I was allowed to sit in his car, his little used patrol car he had bought from the county. I think he paid like $900 for it when he got it. And he borrowed a pair of trousers from one of the officers, First Precinct, and a shirt from another officer, but nobody would loan him a badge and a holster and a gun and all that. But he come pulling over there one day when I was at home to show me that he was working out in the field with the police, which he wasn't.
Right. False representation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he was actually, impersonating a police officer. So, of course, my dad still went against his better judgment and allowed me to go over there to stay the night. So in the morning, we got up, we ate breakfast, and of course, I got to sleep in a room in a bed by myself. And he told me the next time I came over and spent the night that he would let me, sleep in the same bed, with his daughter. Since she was my new girlfriend.
Wow.
So we took a different route home than we did, and I think he did that to where he could have more time to talk to me. He took the long route to bring me home. And when he pulled on Holly Springs Road, he looked back in the rearview mirror at me and and he told me, he goes, Charles, whatever you do not tell anyone about you taking a bath with my daughter, what happened and what was said last night. You don't tell your brothers, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your friends at school, your friends at church, or nothing, because word gets back to your parents and they find out, I will kill your daddy.
And he meant it too.
Oh, he did. He really did.
He wasn't one of them that just would give a threat and not try to give on it. He meant business.
And if too many find out, I may wind up killing both your parents and you and your entire family. And he meant it. So when he pulled in the yard to let me out, of course, my mom, she came out the door and asked him how it was. And of course, I was the ideal child, behaved perfectly, didn't have a problem out of me. His children really enjoyed me staying over. He'd sit there and ask his children, y'all enjoy Charles coming over? Oh, yeah, Dad. You know. So I was groomed by the entire family.
Exactly.
So,
and of course, they were probably groomed in advance to do this and say all this.
Yeah, I'll get into what I found out from Terry when I went and talked with her in 1998 after my appointment. But anyway, he convinced me to come back over there. I think it was like on a Saturday for a few hours, and Dad came over there and picked me up. But when I was there, I kept wanting to. I asked him about what was up in the barn, and nothing. And said, "Well, can I go up there and look?" Well, no. If you go up there and see, you will not be able to come out of that barn again because we are holding people in that barn. And when they tried to escape, we kill them and we bury them up here by the road.
Whoa.
So there's no telling, unless they removed the bodies, the remains, there's no telling how many people can be dug up over there, because this is back in 1972. And I don't think they ever let up since until a year and a half to 2 years ago when I started running my mouth over there at the Waffle House, which is Unit 479.
Right.
But when I did, that barn that was at the on-ramp to the 120 loop from Roswell Road was removed like in just a few days. I went back over it. It was no longer there. They had taken it down, and you can't even see where it once stood. And doesn't even look like there was a barn there.
Did they ever put the post back up when they had torn their post down too? You know, burning the evidence of some of the people that ran away and ended up dying on the post and stuff. Did they ever rebuild the stable parts again? Or I know they kept rebuilding the barn, right?
No, the part of the settlement countersued at Bentley Senior 1978. The terms of the settlement was the old concrete barn and the red wooden barn and the stables had to be destroyed. My dad was paid for the one farm that he bought up in Morganton, Georgia, from Junior Davenport and turned around and sold it to his son Damon, which is where Jim Stubbs is still buried at.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
he got
another
paid
story in
for
itself.
that farm. He got a new vehicle, and I was to receive 6 acres with a house on that farm and $450,000 by the beginning of July of 1996. And the reason why he set it up like that was he figured I'd go in the military, and by the time I finished my career in the military, I would figure out what I would want to do with my life, and I could receive all of that then in the 90s. So he reserved that for receive in 1996.
Okay.
Which, of course, later on the record, they went over there to destroy the records of the courthouse. I couldn't tell him without him. They had threatened to kill him if I told him.
Right. So I'll let you tell them how your dad ended up finding out about what Stubbs had done to you.
Well, he had this old 42 four-door sedan. There, my brother Fred and I, we used to go out and play in it all the time. You know, he had suicide doors, so sometimes I get in the back like I have a little gun, playing cops and gangsters and all that. And we got to talking about the female anatomy and the gear shifter one day. And I made a remark that shocked my brother. And he goes, well, how do you know about all that? And I said, well, I'll tell you, but you have to keep it secret. You can't tell nobody. You can't tell Bill, Billy, Karen, nor our parents, nor anybody we know, your friends, our cousins, our aunts, nor uncles. Promise? Yeah, I promise. I said, well, when I go over there to the Stubbs, I get to play with his daughter. And when I took a bath with her, she taught me a lot of things about that. Because when I was over there on the second trip over there, they were trying to get me, him and Eddie Bentley Jr. were trying to get me to go in that red wooden barn and do some things with her that they could photograph. You know, here they are talking to a 7-year-old boy, because this was just before spring that I went over there. So they were trying to convince a 7-year-old boy that had already helped get a 5-year-old girl rescued by the police in Naples, Florida, to go in where they could take pictures of me doing things with, Jim's daughter, who was only 8 months younger than me.
But I thought this was in Marietta, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am. This is in Marietta. I'm just saying, when the police locate that 4-year-old girl in Naples, Florida, here they were trying to convince me to go in and do some stuff with Marissa, if I remember correctly, that's her name. That they could photograph.
Right.
And I wouldn't go in that barn where they could photograph me. So when I wouldn't do that, Jim went in and called my dad and had him come over and pick me up. So this is right at Springs, before the end of the school year, that we were playing in the automobile. I hadn't been over there since for I can't remember how long, a week or two.
You're lucky he didn't kill you then. You're lucky he didn't kill you then when you refused,
Yes, ma'am. So, when I told Fred that, he goes, well, I'm going to go tell Mom. So he jumps out, and I'm screaming at him not to. They'll kill our dad. He goes running in. And he tells her mom anyway. So of course she winds up calling my grandmother's house, or my, paternal grandmother's house, my dad's mother.
Fred did or the mama did?
My mom did. She called me in. First, she called me in and told me that Fred had told her about me taking a bath with, the Stubbs' daughter over there, and wanted to know what had happened. Told me I wasn't in any trouble. I wasn't going to get a whipping because I did not do anything wrong. So I sat there and pretty much laid it out to her. And so she called my grandmother's house and told her to have my aunt go locate my dad. I think they was over there working in Sandy Plains Estates that day. So he comes home, I think like 30 minutes later, calls me into the kitchen and starts asking me the questions. And so I wound up telling him. And I'll never forget the look on his face when when I asked his daughter how she had learned that he had taught her that. My dad was like, I'll never forget that expression on his face. He goes, "Well, son, I'm going to have to go have a talk with him." I said, "Well, Daddy, you can't do that." And he goes, "Why is that?" He said, "If you find out," I said, "You can't even let him know you know about it, because he said if you find out, he's going to kill you." He said he would kill me. I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, if wasn't enough, he would kill you, Mama, Fred, Karen, Billy, and me. Oh, he did. I'm like, "Well, yes, sir." So he goes, "Well, son, thank you for letting me know that. I know what approach I need to do about this now." So what he wound up doing was he drove over and talked with his buddy Bill Galloway, who was a Cobb County police officer.
Bill Galloway was one of the good officers?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know a lot of them there was bad.
Yeah, well, I'd say better officers. Yeah, I've run across some fairly decent officers for Cobb County. Don't get me wrong, but I've ran more into more crooked ones than I have the good ones.
Right.
But Bill, he was decent. He was actually my hero. So of course my dad, he got with him and got with you know Uncle Merle and some of his cousins, the Davises, and and he had a meeting set up for that night at our home. My Aunt Freddie, she came over. He had an office that was adjacent to the living room there in the hallway, was, one of the bedrooms. It was, I think it was a 4-bedroom house. So he had one office in the first bedroom across the hallway from the bathroom. So my aunt, she sat in that room. They had like three or four detectives standing outside with a bunch of the family standing outside armed whenever my dad called him and had him to come over for an emergency meeting. And of course, when they had their confrontation, he came armed. And so they had their verbal confrontation about it. And that's when my dad told him, Jack, I'm a part-time Cobb County police officer. And he goes, yeah, I know you keep saying that. You got that out-of-date decommissioned patrol car over there on the farm that you groomed my boy with. But I got Bill Galloway parked outside because I've already talked to him. He is a police officer. And he says that you are not a police officer, that your application had not even been accepted. Because we had been told that his application had been accepted by Ed Bentley Sr. And when the 3 months had went by, that he was supposed to wait to start his training at the academy, he told my dad that he had talked with command and had them postpone it because he wanted to do my dad a favor and continue working for him until he could find another heavy equipment operator, like he was doing him a favor. That's how these people operate. They always like to do you a favor.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing this for you, more than I am for me, type deal. And that's what he had sold my dad on, that, since he liked my dad and the family so much that he decided to stay on longer until my dad could find another equipment operator. Then he would go ahead and start his training as a police officer. And his application had been denied twice. They had rejected the first time, and he turned around and he applied again. And they found out that he had a domestic violence arrest out in either Mississippi or Louisiana. And was a suspect in another little boy's disappearance in Mississippi, if I remember correctly.
Oh man.
So he left his application had not been approved by the police department. In fact, the second application was still pending investigation. They had been in communication with the sheriff's department where the domestic violence incident had occurred at. And I'll get that into that later. About the conversation with Miss Stubbs back in 1998. So, of course, before he walked outside into police custody, he looked at my dad and he goes, well, Mr. Rogers, they can't lock me up forever. As soon as they let me out, whether it's in jail or whether it's in prison, as soon as I get out, you're not going to be able to stop me from getting to Charles. You might be able to stop me from getting to your other children, but you'll never be able to stop me from getting to Charles. He goes, I don't care where you move your family to, I will find you and I will kill him.
Thanks for the warning.
Nobody understood why my dad didn't shoot him right then and there. But he told him, well, you just need to go ahead and get out of my house right now. Well, he knew the police was outside waiting on him when he went out there and was taken into custody. So they wound up going over and arrested the mother, and Ed Bentley Sr., he wound up getting custody of the children.
Wow, the main predator and all, he got the custody of the kids, so he let that keep going on, huh? 4 kids.
Yes, ma'am.
4 grandkids.
So here he was in jail. They put Terry, I think they put her in Georgia Regional Hospital, which was the mental hospital there in Atlanta, there in Decatur. Community of Panthersville is where Georgia Regional Hospital is located, next door to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation office, and on Panthersville Road. So I think that's where they wound up putting her. I don't know. They might not have built it yet by then. They may have. I don't know what year they built it, but they put her in the state mental hospital. That's what they did with her. And of course, senior got him attorney, probably his cousin, Fred Bentley Sr., went over and got him a hearing before the Superior Court judge got him a bond, bonding him out of jail. And my dad found out. My dad was like, dude, what? You know, he called the DA's office and raised the cane at him. He was mad. So there was two builders that he built houses with, brothers, Charles and Buster Key. They were from Morganton, Georgia. He had been considering going up to Ducktown, Tennessee, where, his side of the family's from. And that's where my great grandfather, Charles Edgar Rogers, is buried out there in Turtletown, Tennessee.
Never heard of Turtletown.
He was the one he was the engineer, cut the railroads through there back in the day. But, and he was killed by a black guy for putting a railroad through his land. So my grandfather and his brother Mac Rogers, they were they had to be raised by an uncle in Dawsonville before they went to Roswell, Georgia, and with some family over there who were the owners of the Georgian newspaper in Atlanta.
Oh.
So that's how they wound up, in Cobb County. They wound up marrying two Davis sisters, of Gus Davis, and even have an elementary school there off the Jameson Road in Marietta, named after my great grandfather, William Milton Davis Elementary School. Even Davis Road is named after my grandmother's family there in East Cobb.
Wow.
So, even related to a hitman for the Dixie Mafia, Billy Wayne Davis. That's my dad's first half cousin. Of course, I'm also first cousin with Deep State assassin Robert Beach, of course. Mm-hmm. So I've had people scratching their heads about how I wound up doing stuff for the government and being, related to two famous hitmen.
Yeah, just because you might be relationships to them does not mean you're like them.
That's right. Now, if I have to kill somebody, it's in self-defense. Don't start fights, I finish them. Anyway, so Charles and Buster Key knew of these two cattle ranches he could purchase up in that area that were up for sale. So he wound up purchasing both of those. Had me stay at my grandmother's house most of the time, riding on my aunt's school bus, to and from school. So I spent more time the rest of that school year at my grandmother's house. And luckily, this happened right when this heavy equipment operator finished doing this work for that builder. Just somehow, it managed to work out just in time. My dad would have been letting him loose from working for him anyway. But yeah, right after his arrest, my dad wound up hiring back his regular heavy equipment operator.
That worked out perfectly.
Yes, ma'am, it did, and continued doing work for him for a couple of years, and then he wound up having to hire C.W. Matthews, former partner W.D. Gibby, to do his grading for it. But so after the school year finished, that's when he moved us up to Morganton on what we call the old Davenport farm, and he wound up buying my mom a brand new Oldsmobile Regency. That was a beautiful car. It was the maroon package. Beautiful car. Because he knew the old Delta 88 she drove. So he immediately bought her a brand new car, got us up there, and it was pretty good for a couple of years. I loved it up there. I could go fishing anytime I wanted to. And this 2-acre pond in the back pasture. Johnny Davenport was the ranch hand. He stayed there. He was also our school bus driver. So every morning would go up and jump on the school bus and ride school, and got out of school, ride home with him. I'd sometimes go out and work in the garden with him. Wasn't much of a television fanatic, so when I wasn't helping Johnny, I was fishing.
So it wasn't. How long was it before Stubbs ended up finding y'all?
That was in 1975. In 1974, at the baseball game between Morganton Elementary and Murphy Elementary, I accused Francis Cook's oldest son, Mike Cook, going to blow up the federal building out in Oklahoma City that hadn't been built yet after the baseball game.
How old were you there?
I was like 8 when I accused him of that. He was like 9. Well, when my dad came up, he came up just coincidentally. My first year of baseball, Mineral Bluff Elementary did not have enough students for a baseball team. So my brother Fred and I, we played baseball, so we wound up going over and played for Mineral Bluff. My first year of playing baseball. There in spring of '74. So we played Murphy, and of course, we was the worst baseball team. I think Woody Gap over in Suches actually let us win on purpose, just so we could have one game each year we could win. Because both years we did not win but one baseball game. And of course, they wound up shutting down Mineral Bluff and put all the students over in Morganton. So then, which was because they were also building a new high school in Blue Ridge at the time. So, because of that, Jim would follow us. He found out what kind of car my mom had, and he would follow us. She one time spotted him following us up through Nelson, Georgia, there below Jasper, and she wound up pulling off and having to call the police to let them know that she was being followed. And there was another time he had actually followed us up to Jasper, and she spotted him following us call the law again on him. So we knew he was following us every time we came down, and she would go over to a development, meet with my dad, or be out at a restaurant with my dad. He was following my dad around to where he could pinpoint my mother and find out what kind of vehicle he was. So he managed to follow us up to Blue Ridge. Now, this is where she would get him at, because it's back before the construction of, Highway 515. Well, still, you had two ways to go through Blue Ridge, and you still had more than one way to go to Morganton, but you only had one way to get across the dam to get over there. But we had plenty of ways to work our way around and lose this guy whenever he followed her, and he never could figure out where we went once we got to Blue Ridge, because he didn't know whenever we did if she went up toward, Copper Hill, Tennessee, or if we went out toward Morganton, because she would pull through town and make some extra turns or something, and he would wind up losing us. So he could never find us. He could never find us past Blue Ridge. So they turned to their friends in Murphy, North Carolina.
Oh boy.
Well, there was this kid that he didn't play on the Murphy baseball team because, one, he was too old and we were little league. He was like 13 or something like that. 13, 14. Danny Hughes. So they wound up finding out from them that we were in Morganton. So one day, they didn't know exactly where we lived at, but they knew we lived there in Morgan. So one day, where it gets to my dad, that this guy from Marietta, well, they didn't know who he was, but he had come up there twice looking around trying to find us. And so they let my dad know both times when he came up looking for us. So what my dad did was he had this Traco that Jim had operated. He had it hauled up there to the farm. That way, when he found it, he would know dang good and well which farm it was at, where we were living. So he bought a passenger van for my mom to drive us around in, and let that Regency parked there at the farm where we lived. So we stayed over at the other cattle ranch until he could resolve the situation. Well, he got in contact with Bill Galloway and let him know that he had made it up there twice and was asking around and looking for us. So that immediately got Bill to put him under surveillance. And one day he followed him up there to Morganton. He wasn't able to check him with command when they stopped and got gas, because if he went to the payphone, Stubbs could have seen him make the call. He had followed him up once before. He was able to communicate with command before, but he wasn't able to communicate with command that day. So he wound up following him all the way up there to Morganton. And Bill, he parked over behind the old gymnasium there at the school. It's been torn down. It's a church now, of course, Morganton Baptist. But he parked behind the gym, and Jim parked across from Loving Road right there, an old Highway 76 now. And there was this old house that used to stand there on the corner across from the elementary school. It was all run down. Well, he walked back up there through there into the woods and came down behind some houses and the neighboring farm over onto our farm.
Oh boy.
And was hiding out down by the creek, which flowed down and fed into our 2.5 acre pond.
Did you see, did anybody spot him doing that or what?
Well, some of the people, I think the Harkins and others, saw him walking back up and behind their places. And this was another red flag when he wound up buried 20 feet deep. They knew he was coming up there looking for us, but that automobile didn't leave after that,
Yeah.
where you had to park.
Well, he came up there to kill you, and he pointed a gun at you and said, you really probably thought you were shot.
Yeah, he was about to shoot me. I mean, he did pull out his gun and did point it at me when he was shot, that's for sure. My dad had Johnny and me to walk, him and Johnny walked down behind the dam, below the dam, and back up to the woods above the pond where he could cut through the clearing over above where he was hiding at. So when they gave me the signal, I went walking out across the creek and up by the apple orchard up toward a plateau up there. And my dad, he was head out in some trees, and Johnny, he was head out in some trees. He had a shotgun. My dad had a Walker P38. I don't know what kind of gun that Bill had, but Jim had a 45. 45 semi-automatic pistol. So I go walking up, and he comes walking out. Well, Bill was hiding out real close to him from where he came out from. It was surprising that he didn't see Bill, but apparently he didn't, or he just didn't care. He meant to die. Because he came walking out and hollered my name, and I was acting like surprised to see him. And when he come walking up, I was like, well, hey, you glad to see me? And he was like, well, yeah, but you're probably not going to be so glad to see me. And I forgot what else he said. And he goes, see, what I'm going to have to do, Charles, is I'm going to have to teach you a really important lesson. That whenever someone tells you not to say anything, to keep a secret, that you better keep that secret and keep your mouth shut. Because I'm going to wind up going to prison, and with the charges that I'm going to be convicted for, I may not make it out of prison alive. So I'm going to have to kill you, because it's better off you than it is me. And I said, well, how's that going to teach me a lesson if you're going to kill me? Well, it's going to be your final lesson. Well, of course, my dad and Johnny and Bill, they all had come out and come walking up to him. And I'm certain he saw Johnny to the left. And when he raised it, it was really suicide by shooting is what it was. When he raised his gun up at my head, they shot him. Before they shot him, I just turned my back. I didn't want to see him shot. So I turned my back right when they shot him. And they were supposed to report it to the sheriff. And my dad asked Bill if there was anything they could do. He goes, well, they might try to argue that you had that backhoe hauled up here to lure him over here to set this up to where you could kill him. If it was Cobb County, they probably would. He goes, it might be a little different up here in the country than the way they do down there in the city. So my dad goes, well, I think my best bet is go ahead and bury his ass. and that's what he wound up doing. He took that backhoe. There was a cow that had died, mutilated cow. So he wound up digging up that mutilated cow and buried him up underneath that 13 feet below that mutilated cow, and buried that cow about 5.5, 6 feet under. So he's buried close to 20 feet deep in the ground. So when my daddy buried him, he buried him deep. Well, of course, Bill notified his commissioners, Cobb County, what had happened, but they didn't want to say anything. Which I think they did. Family, of course, reported missing, and that car had sat there, I think, for a good 5 days before the sheriff's department found it abandoned there and notified the family and Marietta they had found the car. So at the beginning of the school year, here I was in the 4th grade, and all of my friends, they start pressuring us. They ask my siblings, about what happened to the guy, and my siblings wouldn't say nothing. So one of my buddies, who lived on the farm next door, who had saw him walk over to our farm, and he had heard the gunshots. So there was no hiding it from him. Well, I confirmed to him that, yeah, but that had killed him in my defense, And I told him, he goes, you see, that's not, I turned my back at the last minute and didn't want to see it. Well, by the time word got back to the sheriff's department, oh, yeah, he showed up there to kill me, all right, but I didn't see him killed.
Yeah. And how old were you at this time?
I was 9.
Oh, wow, 9.
So that was the first attempt on my life.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much on a good stopping point after you discuss when they come over there and try to look for the body.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. Kind of comical because Joe Kirby, he was a decent sheriff. But when you hear someone shows up to kill a child, but the child didn't see him killed, you got to investigate, especially when you got a police department stating that one of their officers was involved, in shooting, and it wasn't reported. Any sheriff is going to be a little ticked about that. Why wasn't I notified?
Right.
So we're back over there on the farm, and normally lived, and one evening, the sheriff's department comes popping up with a search warrant. They want to search the property. So they go up and start digging around the area. I had told the neighbor there. Well, they dug down. They found some of the cow bones, that was buried above it. So that detective and Sheriff Kirby come walking down there. Which, of course, Dwayne Kirby, sheriff of Fannin County today, one of his sons. So Sheriff Kirby and detective, they come walking down there, and like they had found something, and went in there and said, well, Mr. Rogers going to let you know, we just dug up some bones up there. And my dad goes, where at? Up here on the hill? He goes, yes, sir. So you dug down a few feet and you found a cow bone, and now you think you found something. Here he is watching me. He's about to go off, national news, when they come in there. That's one thing my dad did not like being interrupted was when he was watching the news. So Well, we're going to take Charles up there with us for a few minutes. You got any objections to that? He goes, no. If you want to talk to him, take him up there, I guess. So we get up there, and they got one of those rubber tire backhoes that pulled up there and dug down and found the cow bones. And he got up there, and the guy running it told him it was cow bones. He didn't think they were human. So that even made him more mad. He looked at me and said, all right, boy, where's he buried at? I looked at him. I said, why should I tell you if you're going to send my daddy to prison? Well, because if it one thing, it's one thing for your dad to kill him for just showing up here versus him turning around and actually having to kill him because he raised his gun to shoot you. I said, well, that's what happened. Oh, yeah? Really? Well, why didn't you see it happen if that's what happened? I said, because I turned my back when he got shot. Oh, really? Well, what did he tell you before he pulled his gun on you? I told him what he told me, and all of a sudden, expressions on his face, that detective, all of a sudden, just totally changed. He was like, oh, my God. He goes, well, Charles, just want to let you know, we're not out here trying to find a reason to lock your daddy up. We're just trying to get down to the truth. He goes, I got a son, he's 12 years old. I don't know what would happen. Someone showed at my farm, I'm sheriff, I could shoot him and I could, make that go away quite easily. But if I wasn't sheriff, I don't know who's to say if I wouldn't have done the same thing your daddy did. And he goes, oh, well, no, we're not sending your daddy to prison. And that detective, he was real nice. He was a nice looking guy. And he sat there, goes, yeah, Charles, my daughter, she's just a little bit younger than you. Somebody showed up and going to shoot my daughter. Believe me, I'd shoot them too. And I'm a detective. But if I wasn't, who's to say I wouldn't want to bury on myself to try to avoid the problem with the law myself? But we know you're not making it up from what he told you. So don't take it that we were here just for the reason of sending your daddy to prison. Sheriff looked over at that tractor operator and said, bear that doggone cow up, load that thing up, let's get out of here. And so, of course, Bentley's, they started raising Cain at the sheriff, so they wound up having to do a grand jury, tried to indict my dad for other charges other than the homicide. Desecration of a corpse, that's what it's under Georgia code now, and failure to report a crime and stuff like that. Well, the jury didn't, grand jury convened, but they did not indict. So after that, they could not do anything else to my dad. So he turned around and he sold that farm back to the man's son who purchased it from him. And Damon Davenport still lives there until this day.
Wow. The next time we talk, we'll go on further in your story. What would you like to discuss the next time? What do you think the next? I
think next time we talk, we'll talk about John Ramsey and the Atlanta child murders and the Bentleys and all them involved in that.
Okay, well that sounds good. Would you like to do that next Sunday, possibly?
That is a possibility. That's normally the best day to, for me to do something is on Sundays.
Okay, well, that sounds good to me. Maybe we can figure out your phone and where it don't die out where, where they can
Yeah,
have you.
everybody's not worried about that. I'm not a iPhone geek or computer geek or anything like that, so I'm not up to key on what a lot of people are. So everybody, my apologies on that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and thank you. I thank everybody that's there listening and giving the support. And if y'all got any questions, be sure to ask in the comment sections, and I'm sure Charles will look in there. I will let him know any of the comments, and he'll be glad to answer them as well. And I'd say God bless you, Charles. And God bless everybody else. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Everybody have a blessed night.
you too. Thank you.